Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. It's episode 2599 of The Tom Woods Show, and I'm delighted to welcome our old friend Angela McArdle, who up until very recently was chair of the Libertarian National Committee, but is now, let's say, retired of her own volition. But that's another matter we'll get into in a little while. But I think it's fair to say that Angela was the most controversial chair in the history of the party. But that, I will say, Angela, that alone doesn't say much, because the whole point of a chair is to be boring and forgettable. I mean, nobody remembers who the chair of the Republican Party was in 1982.
Right.
That's the point. It's by design. They're just placeholders and they're boring. But you were neither of those. And you did some things that were quite unique. And we want to focus in particular on one of them because of the outcome that just occurred last week, namely the freeing of Ross Ulbricht, who was serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years without possibility of parole. The kind of thing that, a mom who loves her son will continue to fight and fight and fight against, but the rest of us secretly feared was just insurmountable. And somehow, it turns out it wasn't. So anyway, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I mean, I'm excited to talk about this a little bit more. There was so much that happened behind the scenes. There was a lot of moving parts. It was pretty stressful, but we did it. We did it.
I had one of my old high school friends, not a bad guy, not a normie, but more normie than I am, wrote to say, can you please just tell me, it's basically telling me I'm not hostile, but can you tell me why Ross's case matters so much, that you guys cared about it so much and everybody knew about it? And there are obviously very unique things about the nature of what he did. But I really do think that one of the reasons we all know about it is his unrelenting mom.
Yes.
Lynn Ulbricht. I think that's part of the reason that we know.
Absolutely it is. I mean, he was a libertarian. His parents were libertarian. He grew up in our broader community, like an outspoken libertarian. But his mom touring the country year after year and speaking to all of us at various events, PorcFest, your conferences, it's just, she's become like an institution, I think, in the broader liberty movement, in addition to Ross.
Yeah. And the kindest person in the world. And it's not even a flex to say, oh, I know Lynn Ulbricht, because everybody knows her.
Everybody does.
Really. I mean, she's just unbelievable. I remember seeing her at Freedom Fest this year and saying to her, we're pulling for a good outcome for Ross. And she was just on pins and needles about the whole thing. So anyway, obviously there are a lot of people who over the years kept the flame of this burning brightly so that people never forgot about him. And in fact, my wife sent him books and wrote letters to him. We got letters back. There was just so much outpouring of care and concern for him. I want to talk, though, about the specifics of your particular role in all this. And this is a role that involves you, the Libertarian Party, Donald Trump, and the Libertarian presidential nominating process. There's a lot going on here. So where do you think the story properly begins?
So the story, yes, prologue is there were 10 years worth of Lynn Ulbricht and the broader movement lobbying on his behalf, really elevating the message. Chapter 1, I think, really begins with Rick Grenell reaching out to me over a year ago, asking what libertarians care about and how do libertarians feel about Donald Trump. Now, Rick wasn't on the Trump campaign. He was just a friend of Donald Trump's. But, he had taken it upon himself to say, if you don't get some libertarian support, this election may not go your way. And so that was kind of a thing. You have the former director of national intelligence reach out to you casually and want to talk to you. And it's like, you and I, we know some mutual people. So I shopped around and got your number. How's it going? Can we have a chat? That's like, oh. So that's really where it started. And I was, unlike many other libertarians, very diplomatic. Very, very diplomatic. I said, these are the things that we think Donald Trump did great at. These are the things where, we're not really into it. Leaves a little bit to be desired, room for improvement. Here's where we're very sympathetic. We really find it disgusting the way the DOJ has weaponized the justice system against him. It's quite horrible. We don't believe any of the insurrection nonsense. We hate how corporate media has vilified him. And I think laying that groundwork really opened the door for the additional conversations and making him sympathetic to Ross.
All right. So that's where it starts. So that's a year ago, but we didn't hear anything about this until he made the pledge that he, being Donald Trump, made the pledge at the Libertarian Party's National Convention in 2024. Now, that in itself is an interesting question because you invited RFK Jr. and Trump and Biden all to come speak, and you got some pushback for that. And you can understand people saying, well, this is the Libertarian Party, and so naturally we expect to hear from Libertarian presidential nominees. So what were you thinking with that?
Oh, who expects to hear from Libertarian nominees? Just the convention goers. No one else cares, man. I hate to break it to you all, but no one cares. They just don't care. We didn't have any big names. It doesn't mean they're not all very fine people. They stepped up to it when many other people turned it down. It was a tough year. But that was a fun convention. But let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
So, Rick got me an invite to Mar-a-Lago. I had dinner with the president. And that was like over a year ago. And, Rick, who is a diplomat, he's going to be dealing with North Korea and the more difficult countries. Very good diplomacy skills. And he reminded me, he said, President Trump is not a regular politician. He's a deal maker. He loves making deals. If you want whatever it takes to get the libertarian vote, you need to ask the world, ask the moon, make the best deal that you can, right? So we went and I had dinner with him, and I was there at Mar-a-Lago for over 2 hours, and he was a little bit late. It's a really interesting thing about him, the way he's vilified in corporate media. And I know that all of your viewers don't believe corporate media. That we're pretty lockstep on that. But when this man rushed into the room, and he was late from literally testifying in court in the same district that had gone after Ross, by the way. He ran in and he shook everybody's hand and he gave me a hug and apologized for being late and said he was still on the stand. So it was the complete opposite of how you think that he's stuck up, he's too good for you, he's a snob, he's mean. He was really, really nice. And we chatted for, I don't know, an hour and a half, whatever it was. There were just very few of us in the room. He listened to everything I said, including comments about the drug war, because I thought that was also important, considering all the propaganda that's out there about Ross. And, he wanted to come speak at our convention. And, he was basically how do I make this happen? All but very politely did everything but ask, what do I need to do? And I said, I think if you came and spoke at our convention and said that you would free Ross Ulbricht, people would love you. And all the people watching, because there's going to be so many people watching, small L libertarians too, they are going to absolutely lose it. They are going to lose their minds. You will get everyone's support just if you free Ross Ulbricht. And so he was sort of like, Ross Ulbricht? Who's Ross Ulbricht? I'll do it. I love freeing people. That's what he said. He said, I love freeing people. I'll just walk out and I'll say, free Ross. And then I'll drop the mic. And that's it. That's all I'll do. I'll just walk out and I'll say, free Ross. And I'll drop the mic. And I know it kind of sounds ridiculous, but I swear I knew in that moment, whether it was the voice of God, whether it was the conviction on his face, I was like, he's going to do this. That's it. And he was like, that's it? Like, he's like, why do the libertarians care so much about Ross? So we got to talk about that. But I just knew, I knew at that moment it was going to happen. I just had to white knuckle it through to the convention and keep people from going psycho in the party so that we could make this happen. But I was just 100% convinced. That was all it took.
It's funny. I became convinced that it was going to happen too. I felt, but the way it happened, let me just say, I'm skipping ahead for a second and then we'll go back. What I thought he would do is have a whole bunch of executive orders on the first day or 2 days.
Yep.
And bury this one in there. Because I felt like Ross's story is not tailor-made for normies. I mean, you can explain it in a way that a normie gets why it matters. But on the surface, a normie would say, whoa, wait a minute, this guy, I don't know how I feel about him. So I could just imagine Trump thinking, I'll satisfy the libertarians. They don't care if there's a lot of fanfare about it, as long as I do it. I'll just bury it amidst a million other crazy things. And I say crazy, not really crazy, but from the media's point of view, crazy. And so then the media won't even have time to focus on it because I'm doing so many other things. But instead, he was very ostentatious about it. He actually put out a Truth Social post and was very upfront about what he was doing, which was not what I expected him to do.
Man of his word. I think he knew it wasn't just the libertarians. And I explained this to him. I was like, you won't just get the small L libertarians. I tried to break it down. I was like, there's party members, there's non-voting libertarians, there's libertarians who operate within the GOP because they think that's the best way. And then there's Bitcoin libertarians. And I tried to explain like a Venn diagram where all the overlap is. I was like, the Bitcoin libertarians, like, you want their support, right? Because they're going to donate. And those people have money. Some of them have a lot of money. So if you make this promise, like, they are going to back you, and they're going to back you in a meaningful way. And that is also what happened. So I think, he had a lot of gratitude, and he recognized, and he saw the vote total too, especially the difference in Bucks County. If you look in Pennsylvania, libertarians continue to vote consistently for other libertarians on down ticket races, state senate, even federal races, which they probably weren't real happy about. Local elections, local candidates, everybody had over 1%. Chase Oliver had he had 0.4%, 0.4%. And so the disparity there is that all the libertarians said, we're going to continue to vote for the libertarians, but we're also voting to get Ross Ulbricht out of prison. And you can see the difference, and that could have made or break. It was a make or break, I think, for the Pennsylvania election.
Hey, everybody, ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can feel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. With Factor keto meals, lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. That's based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. I go to the gym at 11, so it's lunchtime when I'm done. Knowing I have lunch ready to go at home in just a few minutes keeps me from making, well, let's call them suboptimal decisions. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Woods50off and use code Woods50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Woods50off at factormeals.com/Woods50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. And obviously, there had been a lot of attention placed on Pennsylvania and a special effort devoted there with door knocking and stuff. So all eyes really were on Pennsylvania. It ends up, I wasn't expecting quite the outcome that we got electorally, but that's a separate conversation. So in the meantime, though, you're going to have everybody in the world telling you politicians don't keep their promises. This guy's a shyster.
Yep.
This isn't going to happen. And I had people telling me this in the weeks leading up to Trump's inauguration, that, look, you're a libertarian. Don't you know politicians don't keep their promises? But the thing is, what they were doing was taking like a saying and making an apodictic certainty about it. I can come up with a lot of examples of politicians who said they would do X and they did. But and also of cases where they say they're going to do X and they don't do X. I mean, of course we know that. But there are plenty of times that I don't even know what they're talking about. There are plenty of times when politicians have done what they've said they're going to do. Now, as Scott Horton puts it, Horton's law is they tend to keep the bad promises, though, and not keep the good ones.
All right.
Fair enough. But yet you seemed absolutely certain that this would happen.
Certain.
Now, that was partly because you were sitting there talking to him, but were you getting any assurances in the meantime?
Oh, I spoke with his team. I was in constant communication with them, very consistent. Top staffers, passing them messages, passing them feedback, showing them, these are the libertarians who are really excited right now. They're maintaining the excitement. No one has forgotten this promise, showing people flip. People who were at the convention, who were delegates, who were like, we're boycotting this. We don't want to see Donald Trump go from like, we hate him to, you know what? We're supporting him and I'm voting for him. And I'm sorry. Tons of support, just kept passing it consistently, and they're like, what else do we do? I'm like, well, work on this, work on the debt, get rid of agencies. They were open to a lot of ideas. But I mean, beyond that, one of the reasons I made this promise is I thought it would be easy to keep and it would have a really strong impact. So first of all, we're saving Ross Ulbricht's life. We're busting this man out of a prison sentence that he's just not going to get out of. It's got strong emotional appeal baked into it. There's no way around that. Like you are tugging on the heartstrings of every libertarian. I mean, and you understand from a basic marketing perspective, that's something you're very good at, the power of emotional appeal and narrative. And this is just like, bam, like right to the heart of every human being who cares about him. So much so that the people who don't know about him are very interested. And they're like, what is the deal with Ross Ulbricht? Why are people like screaming and cheering, and in such a frenzy over it? It was also a very easy promise to make. All you have to do is pardon someone, and you can do it in a public way, or like you said, you suspected you could do it in a very private way. And there was a financial incentive, which is all the backing of the Bitcoin and crypto community, and the fact that it could potentially make or break the election. I think they understood that the Joe Jorgensen vote, had that not been there, and had it been that most JoJo voters were people who were inclined to vote more to the right, which I actually disagree with. But for that, potentially, he might have won 2020. I think they understood all of that, and it just came together like this was the perfect deal to make.
Yeah. So when you were asked what do they want, the first thing you thought of, because it was finite and attainable and not pie in the sky, was free Ross.
Free Ross. My second ask was free Julian Assange. And that was a maybe, and we had a discussion about it right there, and the impact and whether it was the right thing to do. And Rick Grinnell also advocated for Julian Assange there. And I know there are questions about whether or not he was involved in Julian's original detention, but I sat there face to face with him and watched him advocate for Julian Assange to the president. We didn't get there, though, because thankfully Julian Assange was released in advance.
Right. Okay. So explain to me the dynamic at work here where in which you are the chair of the Libertarian National Committee. You're the chair of the party, and your delegates chose Chase Oliver to be your nominee. But Chase Oliver has no chance of freeing Ross.
No.
But this deal does. So you as chair, what did you do?
Okay, so, I was backing Michael Rectenwald. And, Rectenwald wasn't in any of my talks with the Trump team. Like, he didn't know anything about it. He had nothing to do with it. But I was really hoping that he would once it came time, he would say something positive about Donald Trump without endorsing him. That was what I was hoping. And then the media would pick it up, and he had donated to Trump in the past, and they would just run with the story, and that would kind of help, if that makes sense, without Michael Rosenwald being asked to do anything, unethical. Well, what had happened is we had 7 rounds of voting for our presidential candidate, which I don't know if that had ever happened. If it had happened in the party's history, it had been a long time since. 7 rounds of voting. Business was extended. It was a very difficult, contentious convention. I believe I chaired that day's business, and then it was 14 hours of a meeting that I had to chair. By the end of the meeting, I had like a toddler on my hip and was eating a piece of pizza because we had gone through the gala that I also planned and had. There were a lot of awesome things at this convention, and Sunday's business just wrecked it. Poor Nicole Shanahan. She was supposed to speak. They just did not. The delegates were just like a pack of wild animals on Sunday. So Nicole is just wandering around waiting to speak, and I have to embarrassed tell her, sorry, we don't have any time for you to speak. The voting continued until we started to experience attrition. People had red-eye flights. They thought business would be over by 5, 6, 7, 8. Business went till 1 a.m. And by the time we got to the final round, a lot of the Rechtenwald delegates were gone. Mike Termott endorsed Chase Oliver. And I'm sure that it would be a very interesting conversation if anybody wanted to ask him how he feels about that after the fact. But, a lot of people left. There were 300 delegates who voted NOTA, saying that they would rather have none of the above as opposed to Chase Oliver. I was one of them. And as I had to announce the results, I think Chase had 525 or 535 votes for him and 300 people. And a lot of the votes for him were just people who were afraid we wouldn't have ballot access in certain states if we didn't have a presidential candidate, which is false. I mean, that impacted 3 or 4 states in the country, but not the entire nation. So that rumor got out, and we have it. And as I'm gaveling out, I'm already thinking this is just so awful and embarrassing for the Mises Caucus right there, that guy right there, but could not have worked out any better for Donald Trump. This was absolutely perfect for Donald Trump. I mean, he did not pull. And the polling data that I got early polling data in swing states showed that Chase was getting 78% support from Democrats and Green Party, former Democrats and former Green Party voters. It was wild. It was 11% of his current supporters voted for Joe Jorgensen in the past, and 11% voted for Donald Trump in the past. It swung so far to pulling from the left.
It's interesting that his followers didn't seem to get that.
Oh, no, they don't get it at all. I mean, when I spoke with the Trump campaign the next day, they were just yes.
Yeah, of course they want him. Well, why wouldn't they?
They loved it. And, it took me a while. And I have this infamous video where I endorsed Chase Oliver as the best way to take votes from Joe Biden. And people were upset about that, but it was a very funny video. And it was correct, and they never did anything to try to change it, which I think is interesting. He spent his entire campaign touring at gay pride events, pride festivals. And I was just this is fantastic. Just leave it uninterrupted. Don't mess with it. This is exactly what we need. That helped. Thank you, Clown Prince, the Andy Kaufman of the LP, for the best performance art I have ever seen. It was the most progressive leftist candidate I think the party's ever had.
Well, it's an interesting thought experiment to think about what might have happened if the LP had a stronger candidate, or it had a candidate who actually could inspire people and build a bit of a movement. But yet, I think that's not a really valid thought experiment, because in 2024, anybody who fits that description would have been out of his mind to run for the LP nomination.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you what I think actually would have happened. And it's a little painful, but that's okay. Like, we need this learning lesson. We all, libertarians, small L, voting, non-voting, you need this lesson. If it had been a strong person, if it had been Dave, if it had been me, if it had been you, no pressure, Tom, what we would have done is we would have folded at the end and endorsed Donald Trump, and we would be at Mar-a-Lago on the transition team. And if Chase had had the fortitude to do that, he would have been on the transition team, but he didn't. So we got, I think, the second best possible outcome. But that would have been the first best possible outcome, because then we would have, and Kennedy, major props to that man. Like, I cannot state it enough. Like, he has vetted a lot of libertarians to go into HHS. He's put through tons of transition team applications. Like, he's been a fantastic ally. Everybody who doubted him was like, oh, he's an FDR Democrat. Like, that's the man who's pushed through all the libertarians. But, we would have had like a real diehard in there if someone had run, because I don't think anybody in their right minds would have said, let's throw this election and give it to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz with price controls. It's communism. We were facing down like an American version of communism.
Folks, a lot of the people in the world you and I inhabit urge us to buy gold and silver, but they leave it there. They let your gold and silver sit there like lazy bums. Well, my gold and silver is a little more ambitious than that. While everybody else's gold and silver is just sitting around, mine is earning me interest, paid in more gold and silver, thanks to my account at Monetary Metals. Monetary Metals is revolutionizing how to invest in precious metals while gold prices continue to increase in value. Join thousands of investors all over the world who earn interest on gold and silver every month with Monetary Metals. Not only can you store your gold safely for free, but you can earn 2% to 4% on your gold, paid in more ounces of physical metal in their gold lease offerings. Our old friend Jeff Deist, in fact, formerly at the Mises Institute, is now with Monetary Metals. Go to monetary-metals.com/woods to learn more. That's monetary-metals.com/woods. But what about those people who say, politics, we get, is an ugly game, but that's why the Libertarian Party is so different, because we don't get down in the mud. We, come what may, regardless of what public pressures we're under, we are going to hold aloft the principles that we've held in this party for 50 years.
What are the
and
principles?
If we lose, we lose, but we lose honorably rather than by capitulating.
What are the principles? Everybody talks about the principles, and I'm like, which ones are they? What are the principles? They don't know. No one can say free markets. Okay, let's go free market. Don't you think cutting $2 trillion from the budget and dramatically deregulating the country is free market? There's just no defense for the people. We're not a pacifist organization. I think a lot of the people who make these arguments for like radical purity, they're ideologues. They are also usually radical egalitarians. They've never advanced libertarianism. They also hate really effective messaging. Like, they're just ineffective. And there's some nihilism mixed in there, I think, too. They don't want to see, like, they're anti-opportunity and anti-growth.
Everything Trump does wrong, you are going to get blamed for personally, Angela. It's your fault.
That's okay. I'll take it. I got really thick skin. People are like, oh, I hate Angela. I have a lot of people blocked on social media, which apparently it's illegal or something. They don't want me to do that. Suck it. I got really thick skin. I did the right thing. I said, we are not going to get 100% libertarian administration, which is true. It's the Republican Party with a bunch of ex-Democrats running things right now. But we're going to stave off communism. We're going to stave off price controls. And that's, I think, one of the most important things. Like that right there, if nothing else, the threat of price controls on groceries is enough to scare any economically literate person into supporting Donald Trump.
Let's go to the 48 hours, let's say, around the time of the pardon. Now, some of us were counting the hours, as you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because we were told, quote unquote, day one.
Day one.
And so we waited and waited. And then when the hours continued to pass, we started to hear, is Ross free yet? From people who have done nothing. And who, like, that's just an annoying thing to say. Like, if you were, you'd know. Like, so you're just being annoying? Like, why are you doing that?
Oh, yeah.
But then it became, oh, yeah, he's not going to follow through on it. Not only did he follow through on it, he actually went beyond what he pledged, which was a mere commutation of the sentence. He went beyond to a full and unconditional pardon. But I want to know, did you have any thought at that time that maybe this guy screwed me?
No, I was in constant communication with his staff. I think what happened is they literally just got behind schedule, which I can understand after running a convention where the second day of business went 14 hours. But that's what happens. They were like, it's coming, it's going to be late tonight or early tomorrow. And then it ended up getting pushed to later. And it was about 36 hours after he was sworn in, which is not bad. I was stressed. I mean, I was so stressed in the lead up to this because you got to understand that's Ross, I know is happening, but the requests from other people whose loved ones are in prison or requests on behalf of the people who are in prison, who are innocent, who are nonviolent offenders, who are libertarians, it's been a lot. And so I mean, this was like, Crohn's flare, bleeding ulcer time for me. Like I was so sick leading up to this. There are so many people who are just like, understandably so, desperate to get help for the people that they care about too. And so I've been trying to pass last minute requests, advocate for people, get tons of signatures from senators, congressmen, and everybody's laser focused on the confirmations and the inauguration. Signing Angela McArdle's additional petition is the last thing on their list. So I was really, really stressed leading up to this, and there's a ton of social pressure, but I knew he was going to deliver. I knew he'd deliver for us.
So the Truth Social post says he called Lynn on the phone.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
I called Lynn while she was on the phone with President Trump. I knew what was happening the moment because someone from his staff just immediately texted me, done. I guess as soon as it was signed, I knew what was going down. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they were like, I know on the outside, everybody's just speculating on Twitter, but they were in communication with me the whole time. Like, there's no doubt. Like it's like, oh, Angela's so like dumb to trust in them. But wouldn't you have to have some faith that people who are in constant communication with you are going to follow through on their word.
Yeah, you would expect to be ghosted if they were going to screw you.
Correct. And then never ghosted me. Very consistent and respectful and diplomatic and friendly. Like the Trump campaign is just like, they were a class act. That campaign was run so well.
Maybe this is a question I have to ask Lynn herself, but did she have the certainty that you had?
I think so. I think she did.
Was she, does that mean she was there, like at the prison, knowing that any minute her son could get out? Like, where was she that day?
She was nearby. I don't know if she was like literally there because we haven't spoken at length since it happened. I mean, we've communicated, several times, but I'm trying to also be a buffer because everybody's like blowing me up trying to get to him. And I'm like, you got to give the family a little time. Like, can you imagine getting out of, maximum security prison with murderers and rapists and violent criminals, when you're just like a libertarian nerd for 11 years. But yeah, I think that she knew, and we prayed about this a lot. And it's just like, God just places in your heart, like, this is happening. This is happening. And she's been praying for it a long time.
Yeah. And again, I was just listening to Dave Smith's episode on this. He was just riffing on it, talking about all the experiences we all have getting to know Lynn and looking at the odds her son was facing. And it just, like no one, of course, would ever say it to her, but we were all thinking he could very well die in prison. In fact, that is the overwhelming likelihood of what's going to happen. And so there is a benefit, despite all his faults, of a person like Trump who is manifestly not a Bush, an Obama, a McCain, a Romney, a Biden. He's not any of those. And that's good because a Bush, an Obama, a McCain, a Romney, a Biden, or a Kamala Harris, all combined, not one of them would have lifted one finger for this guy. And so that this was very significant that it is that he's a maverick. This guy's a maverick. Remember they used to call John McCain a maverick?
Yes.
The guy was the biggest establishment blowhard in the world. He was a maverick because occasionally he would break ranks and vote with Ted Kennedy on the Democrat side. And they'd say, oh, what a maverick. No, a real maverick is a guy who breaks ranks with the entire system.
Yes. Yeah, and he did. People are like, oh, Angela's in love with Donald Trump. I'm so impressed. Why shouldn't I show a tremendous amount of gratitude when Obama broke a ton of campaign promises? Biden, and certainly even though I felt certain that Donald Trump was going to deliver on his promises, but every once in a while I'm still thinking like, oh my gosh, what if he treats me like Biden treated BLM? What if we're just done, And that's not what happened, but that thought had, was like in the back of my mind a few times.
Well, not to mention, a word got out that Trump had a person or two in his ear who was trying to tell him that actually it was a bad idea to free Ross.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, people who are hardcore drug war, people who hate Bitcoin, those people are going to disagree. That's no surprise. It's basically neocons. Neocons think it's a bad idea. Well, they pretty much hate all of our ideas.
Well, my plan is that for tomorrow's episode, I'm going to do, because I want to talk about the details of what were the inner workings and what happened and what went on. But I do want to do an episode on Ross himself and the details of the case. Yeah. Because, you are going to run into your friend who says, well, I Googled him and I found out that he turns out to be a bad guy. I want to get all the information out that we can, which also I think has the indirect effect of helping transition him back into normal life so that, more and more people will be aware of what the full story is. So I am planning to get to that tomorrow. But I wanted to talk to you now, what part of the story have we left out that we need to include?
Well, let me think about it. Meeting at Mar-a-Lago, convention. Boy, that convention was wild. I mean, he did exactly what he said he would do. He walked out there and he said, free Ross, and the crowd went crazy.
Yeah, and they hadn't been entirely favorable toward him, but that particular thing, I mean, what are you going to boo that?
Oh, the crowd erupted. I'd also say, Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm pretty sure helped to lobby for him behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and Michael Malice, I think, is the one that raised it with Vivek.
Yes, right. So that's definitely a piece of this puzzle.
I think
so it was funny, I have to admit, because Malice's show is called You're Welcome.
Yeah.
With the capital letters, with the YOUR and the quotation marks. And so there's a picture of Ross, getting out of prison. And Malice retweets it with the words, "You're welcome."
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a role to play, I guess.
Everybody has a role to play. There were a lot of people who advocated on his behalf. Trump repeated the promise on
October 31st. Free Ross Day 1 was a hashtag. He repeated it a couple times.
At the Bitcoin conference too, which was probably very, very advantageous for him.
Yeah.
And people who knew him were messaging me and assuring me as well. Kash Patel was like, "We're getting your guy out." And that means a lot coming from the incoming FBI director.
Sure does. That sure does. I think the central bank digital currency issue is similar to the Ross issue in that he obviously had not heard about this before. Then Vivek warns him about central bank digital currencies. He goes out and gives a speech and he tells his people, I will never allow a central bank digital currency. And he gets this totally unexpected to him, cheer.
Yep.
Like, geez, my own people are ahead of me on this. And he said, boy, you guys are real smart. I basically just learned about this from Vivek.
Yep.
But I think likewise with Ross, when he goes to the Bitcoin convention, he there are big cheers there. He must have thought, geez, I guess I really did touch on something people care about.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, one of the things that I was really impressed with through his campaign is how open he was to these ideas. He was really open to hearing about Ross. He was open to hearing about Bitcoin, CBDCs. I don't think it's that people think Donald Trump is quote unquote like set in his ways, but they think he's like dumb, or that he doesn't listen to people, or he just does whatever he feels like in the moment. My experience is that he was really open to receiving new information. And I think that that's a really good thing to have, in a president. And obviously it worked out for us.
Okay, so I won't ask what's next for you because that's private, and I'm sure you'll announce that in your own time. But are you officially resigned from the Libertarian Party?
I will be officially resigned when the ballot comes out. So I am taking a position where I can't be chair of the party. So we'll see how much space I get in between the two. But yep. Yeah, I got Ross free. We got a lot of really cool stuff done under my chairmanship. Yeah, controversial. I would say that during this election cycle, it was more, the chair of the party was more influential than the candidate, which is pretty crazy. And that's indicative of, I think, some serious dysfunction in the party. And I have a book coming out on all of that.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah. That'll be out this year. It's 50% of the way done. I'm slogging through the middle, which I know you understand as an author.
Yeah.
But it's outlined, it's done. It's gonna be a banger. I've got a board game out describing my chair race already. It's called Beat the Lulberts. I need to put it on my website soon. I've sold a few copies just through PayPal. It is a real game. It's like Candyland. I've got a couple of other things. I've got Tweets Against Humanity, a New Hampshire.
Oh,
LP.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
New
good.
Hampshire LP card game is out. And anybody who signs up in New Hampshire and attends their convention, you'll have an opportunity to get some copies raffled to you. So yeah, I've got a lot going on. Just based off of that, I've talked with Tim Pool about doing some collaborations. He's got a lot going on, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But yeah, my plate is very full. I hope that we have strong successorship in the party. I'm not just leaving the party and just saying, see you later. I'm just stepping down from chair. I hope that they take Michael Heiss as the next chair. That's my recommendation. So that I can pass on a lot of these connections and networking. I mean, at this level of politics, it's not transactional. It's all about relationships. And a lot of those I've cultivated, very carefully. And I want to pass them on to someone who I trust, who has the charisma and the vision and the tenacity to keep it all going.
I saw a tweet by, but there's no point mentioning names, but scolding Trump because he didn't pardon Ross in the right way.
Oh,
that he didn't say if this was an unjust sentence, that he made it transactional, like you helped me, I help you. And so you are a big stinker, Donald Trump. And I just thought, this is like where mental retardation goes to.
It's, yeah.
I don't know what to say to that.
They need an evaluation. They needed a mental health evaluation.
I've never seen anything like it. He called
the people who convicted Ross scum. And what else? There was another word, scum and something. I think it was pretty clear.
Lunatics.
Lunatics, scum and lunatics. I think it's pretty clear how he feels about that and the fact that it was unjust. What else? Oh, one other detail. It was going to originally be a commutation, and I had the opportunity to ask very nicely if they could please make it a full pardon, and I did. And And they did it. And that was like a week before, maybe less than a week before the Thursday, Friday. I think that was like 4 days before it was written. A real lesson for me in all of that is to like make the ask. Because one of the things that's been difficult for me in all of this, and I think that the culture and the Libertarian Party like reinforces it, is it's like, don't ask for the best thing. Make a small ask. Don't assert yourself. You're not going to win anyway. It's sort of like loser mentality. And I had to really break ranks with that on this whole process and ask, and they delivered. And they didn't have to do that. And that wasn't the original promise. So, they went above and beyond there.
Well, it's tremendous. And of course, we're all waiting with bated breath to hear more from Ross. We did get a little video from him.
Yeah.
But we all, at this point, he's going to be mobbed everywhere he goes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a but I mean, particularly our events, but I'm sure he'll be recognized out in the wild. But at our events, it would be crazier than if Murray Rothbard were walking around. Honestly, it would be crazier than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. So I came up with the idea that I posted on social media that this guy's been in prison for over 11 years. And now he's restarting his life. Now, thankfully, I think he'll land on his feet and be fine.
Yep.
But all the same, and even if it turned out that somehow he's got some Bitcoin fortune stashed somewhere, even if that were true, there's no amount of money you could have paid me to be in prison for 11 years, So like that still is a horrible, horrible thing he endured. So my attitude is to facilitate his to his reentry into free society, and to show have a recognition of the horror he endured, was that I think libertarians should give him the key to the city.
Yes.
So I said, you go to tomwoods.com. I have all kinds of things there for sale, and some of them are very expensive. You can have any one of them, and that includes my author coaching, because you need to write that book, my friend.
Yes.
I mean, I want to read Angela McArdle's book, but I also want to read Ross or Lynn Ulbricht's book. And so I just said, anything you and my cruise, the Tom Woods cruise, you have free passage on that with your family until one of us dies.
Nice.
And so I'd like to see everybody jump in and throw something into that little prize package.
We've given him an honorary lifetime membership through the Libertarian Party. And can I ask how quickly these episodes air?
Let's see. This one will be out 2 days after we record it.
We've given Ross Ulbricht an honorary lifetime membership to the National Party. That's kind of all, that we have to offer. And by the way, I have also extended an honorary lifetime membership to President Donald Trump for free, Ross Ulbricht. So,
how about that?
My 1-2 punch on my way out the door. But I don't.
Okay.
I'd be making heads explode. But I love the idea of giving Ross the key to the city, and I hope more small business owners follow suit. Let's give him a really warm welcome.
Yeah. Because I mean, in that video, and I'll let you go in a minute, but in that video where he's saying that how great it feels to be free and that it's kind of overwhelming, I tried to put myself in his shoes as he was saying those words. What would it be like to be completely isolated from the world in that way for that long, and really having very, very little hope of that ever changing? And then suddenly your future is blank pages again.
Yeah.
You can go out and make it whatever you want.
Yeah. I'd be like, I don't know. I think I'd spend a lot of time on the grass.
Yeah. Oh, because then the next day we got on his Twitter feed a picture of him in the sun, wearing a Free Ross t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I love that now, Free Ross, it's not a verb, it's an adjective. He's Free Ross.
Yeah. What a trip. This whole thing, it's been really surreal. It's been really surreal.
Yeah. So now this is a separate episode, but Elon Musk had a most unfortunate post the other day about Roger Ver.
Yeah, and I am still working that aggressively behind the scenes. The wheels are still in motion. So I was pretty discouraged by what Elon said, but not everybody in the president's sphere of influence feels that way.
And let's just, so we're not being cryptic, we'll just say that Elon basically said Roger Ver renounced his citizenship. There are benefits of membership. That's just the way it goes. So no pardon.
Yeah. And I don't think that Elon is speaking on behalf of the president, and maybe he is upset about something else. Maybe he had a lot going on that day. I know there's been, some disagreements over the Sam Altman stuff, Stargate, and all the AI stuff. So even though I think that's a pretty grave misstep, I try to interpret it in the most, generous light and think like that was just a bad screw up. He doesn't really wish that harm on Roger Ver or anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Obviously, your best efforts are most appreciated. But what's a link as we wrap up that you'd like to send people to, if any?
Yeah, I'll be posting some really cool stuff on AngelaMcArdle.com soon. If you want to support Roger Ver, please do that at freerogernow.org. If you are feeling generous and you are so inclined, the Libertarian Party would love your support. This was what we spearheaded. It was, it got a lot of my focus over the last 6 months, or year. And if you want to reward the LP for that, we would love it. And you can donate at lp.org.
All right, very good. I'll have those links at tomwoods.com/2599, also in the video description. Thank you very much, Angela.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.